So I just saw The Curse of La Llorona, and it was awful. I went into this film with fairly low expectations based off of the laughable trailers, but I was somehow still surprised by just how atrocious it was. This movie just feels like a crappy ripoff of much better horror movies. Imagine the mix of Mama, Lights Out, Poltergeist, Under the Shadow, Drag Me to Hell, Veronica, The Woman in Black, and many other good horror films, but without the competency or craft of any of those movies. This film is baffling in just how terrible it is. The acting was fairly garbage with the exception of Linda Cardellini. She did fairly good. Everyone else, however, gave fairly crappy performances. The film relies way too heavily on bad child actors. I'm not even sure if these children auditioned considering just how poorly they did. We are currently in an era where so many great child actors are being given their time to shine, and you chose a bunch of kids who can't act to save their lives? I guess the casting director decided that casting children off the street is less illegal than the casting process on some of his other films. They also brought back the priest from Annabelle because we all knew this was a Conjuring film in hiding. He plays the same character. They flash back to that one specific shot of the Annabelle doll that features in every Conjuring film, and his performance was atrocious as per usual. Patricia Velasquez, however you pronounce her name, I've probably just butchered it, gave easily the funniest performance on show. Her line delivery was genuinely so awful that it felt like a goddamn punchline. It's not like the writing was any good though, so at least she made it slightly more bearable. The dialogue is boring, the story is stupid, the characters are unlikable, the script is such an unbelievable mess that I'm surprised it made it to the screen at all. The film was at its most entertaining during its horror scenes, not due to any tension or fear or effectiveness or competency, but purely due to just how goddamn funny it gets. There's a scene with an umbrella where the usage of CGI is so noticeable that it feels like an intentional joke. There's a scene in a bathtub which is all sorts of nonsense, as well as being oddly reminiscent of a similarly bad scene in The Ring 2. If the film was as enjoyable as its funniest parts, we'd have quite the so bad it's good movie on our hands. It even at points feels like an unintentional spoof of the horror genre. But the issue comes in that spoofs are usually meant to be funny all the way throughout. Speaking completely honestly, The Curse of La Llorona is a contender for the most boring film of 2019. Admittedly, it also has to compete with Vice, but this film is so unbearably dull at points that even though it gets really funny, I don't really ever want to see it again. Last year's Slender Man was also fairly boring, but it was so entertainingly bad at times that I do genuinely want to go revisit it. But I don't think I could do that with The Curse of La Llorona. Maybe I'll look up the funnier scenes on YouTube when they're available, but watching the film as a whole just seems like such an undesirable experience to me. The film wasn't that great when it came to the cinematography. There's a couple of nice shots scattered in there, including one really good one-take near the beginning, but the film is either really blandly shot or any good camera angles are ruined by the camera overly shaking. It got to a point where I was genuinely wondering if the cinematographer had arthritis. After looking at his fairly unimpressive track record with a couple of exceptions, I've gathered that he just isn't the best with a lens. The ugly color palette of the film didn't help at all. This film is honestly very visually unappealing and flat out ugly. Lots of grey tones do not make your movie creepy. I guess Michael Burgess decided to carry that gimmick over from Priest. The music was fairly generic stock horror music and it felt very unfitting at times. One part stood out to me as particularly weird though, as the soundtrack felt at one point similar to the Wonderstruck score. What was that about? The effects were all fake looking and fairly garbage. This is a horror film that mentions blood but hates it for some reason, so whenever you could be seeing blood they replace it with black goo. There's literally a scene where they're doing a ritual where the bloodier the inside of the egg, the eviler the area it's been rubbed around. They crack it out and surprise, it's black goo. I'm not saying the film needed an overabundance of gore or anything, but if you're going to feature this ritual based on blood, maybe feature some blood. The editing kinda sucked. There's a scene where there's like 8 fades to black between every shot consecutively and it adds nothing. It's not implying passage of time or achieving any sort of effect. I felt like I was watching a really bad trailer. The film sets things up for what feels like no reason. Why mention the dead dad if it adds nothing? Technically, the main character does use it to guilt someone into giving her a case that leads to the plot of the movie, but you could have just written it so that she just got the case as part of her job. Having this writing choice just makes her more unlikable. I don't know why you do this. Why make the protagonist a social worker if she's just going to be an awful mother the entire movie? Seriously, what kind of parent leaves their small child in a bath on their own? Isn't that kind of a hazard? You're a social worker who investigates bad parents and you see no issue with this. The amount of scenes where the mother leaves her children on their own is pretty ridiculous. You're not gonna ask anyone to watch them in your car, you're not gonna have a neighbor looking on them while you're at work. Alright, I'm gonna enter spoiler territory. If you don't want spoilers for this tragedy of a movie, skip to the timecode on the screen now. 3, 2, 1, go. So near the opening of the movie, the protagonist investigates a case where some kids she's known for a long time have been missing school. She finds them in a cupboard and takes them out of the house, much against the mother's cries, and then the protagonist tells them they're safe from their mother, and one of the kids says that she didn't hurt them. For some reason, the protagonist does not ask them who did hurt them. Isn't that part of your job? Later on, the kids are sleeping and one of them encounters a fairly laughable guard jump scare as he's checking up on them. Then, because they're idiots, they both go and walk off and then they both die, and despite their screams, the guard doesn't hear them. He can't be that far away. Also, I guess there were no security cameras because the authorities presume the mother did it. Anyways, obviously their mother is upset that Llorona killed her kids due to the protagonist bringing them out of the cupboard. So later we found out that Llorona is only bugging the protagonist and her kids because the mother prayed for her to. But why did Llorona target your children in the first place? Did someone just pray your children would die? Maybe Llorona was just bored one day and decided she wanted to cause some drama. Even later on, the main family and some other guy have trapped Llorona outside the house, but then the other lady who prayed to Llorona shows up and tries to take the kids to Llorona, and she shoots the other guy and then lets the Llorona inside. Apparently the door wasn't locked, and apparently the kids weren't a priority because Llorona goes straight for the protagonist. The kids make it to the attic and tie the worst knot ever, and Llorona gets into the attic and Prayer Lady feels bad about what she did and helps the protagonist get to the attic. The kids attempt to hide from Llorona but keep the torch on because they're stupid. So obviously Llorona finds them and is about to get them when all of a sudden the protagonist and the guy who got shot arrive. Llorona flings the guy who got shot and the kids run over to their mother. The other guy conveniently throws a cross to the protagonist as Llorona is charging at her and she just stabs Llorona with it. Llorona then instantly dies and black goo goes everywhere. So all you had to do was stab her with the cross? You'd think this demon would be harder to defeat, but okay then. Why are conjuring demons always so laughably easy to defeat? Anyways, this movie was stupid and bad, but not even in a way where it's fun to tear apart. It has its moments of unintentional hilarity for sure, but the film is so goddamn dull that I can't really recommend you check it out. It's boring, uninspired, cliche, it's just everything you've seen before. It's easily the least entertaining of the Conjuring films, and while it's not as bad as something like Annabelle, it's still pretty atrocious. I'm giving The Curse of Llorona a 2 out of 10. Don't bother with it, it sucks. That's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe. I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.